It's a Saturday, Terry, which
Every day
means
is Saturday.
we need to catch
Every
up.
single day.
We need to catch up from the previous week. So go ahead.
It's been a busy week for me. On the writing front, I started writing the novel on Monday, and if I get writing done to the tune that I expect to get tomorrow, I'll have written about 26,000 words in the last 7 days.
Nice.
I'm over 20,000 now.
Nice.
So I'll be happy with that. Deadline is, hanging over my head like the sword of Damocles. So got to keep putting those words out. I did some role playing as a little 2-part, one single sort of affair with the GM that runs me online, and with a bunch of players, because he needed a fill-in because somebody wasn't able to be there for this. And we played a grimdark setting called Warhammer Fantasy.
Oh no.
And it's very, very gritty and dark, and terrible things can happen to you. And this was using the adventure from the starter set, and he had pre-generated characters. So I went down the pre-generated characters, and of course there was one that did not fit in. Totally not grimdark, totally not like anything like any of the other characters. They're all elf, dwarf slayers and magic casters with grim countenances.
And you've got an emo skateboarder wearing a beanie and a Black Sabbath t-shirt doing
that is not so far from the truth.
I kind of figured.
Not so far from the truth. I'm playing an elf, which is very rare, and he's naive, intelligent, and utterly fascinated by humanity. That's the part that I have that's in the character itself. It's already baked into the character. And so I decided to just roll with it. It's on the character sheet. That's what it is. So I decided to roll with that. And I was both amused, amazed, and horrified by everything that I saw. And I started off the game. We start off by going through a marketplace and shopping. And I'm looking to buy some healing draughts because, you can never have enough healing in a grimdark place that it's probably going to cut your arms off and leave you hobbling along with no feet at the bottom of your legs.
As you do with grimdark.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way that I expected that to work out.
Horrible things happening to horrible people who horribly deserve it.
Pretty much. So I'm there shopping, and the GM is having the merchant talk to me, and just suddenly this wild urge to just be, completely left field comes in there, and I go, "Do you make your healing draughts with cinnamon? I hear people in the Empire use cinnamon in their healing draughts." And immediately on the Zoom call, I see the guy that's playing the dwarf just basically bent over his desk laughing. And he's like, "You broke the dwarf. You broke the dwarf." And go ahead.
What was the GM's reaction?
He handled it pretty well. He didn't act like it threw him off at all. But later on, after we all get arrested for a massive fight in the marketplace, we didn't start it. It was part of the thing. There was a riot taking place. Everybody got arrested. It was a bunch of circus performers that caused the riot. And I ended up being locked up with some of them, and there were mimes there. And my character, being entranced by humanity, was utterly entranced by mimes, to the point where he spent the evening learning how to do mime stuff. They put makeup on his face, and the other characters in the GM are just sitting there shaking their head going, "What the hell just happened?"
You're the player all GMs hate and love at the same time.
You never know what that character's going to do. That's for damn sure.
You derail everything, and at the same time provide an unreality to it that just kind of says, "Okay, well, things are not weird enough. We got a character over here who's completely fucking batshit bonkers." Lovely.
I missed out on my opportunity to prod the dwarf after the fight, because he's the one that got this fight really started, because when they came through and started attacking people, they basically dumped his lunch over his head. So he got his beer spilt all over him, and the guy stole his sausage. And in the fighting, the sausage got cut in half, and there was a half a sausage left laying on the ground. And if I'd have had an opportunity, I'd have walked up to the dwarf after it was over and picked up the sausage. Ooh, someone dropped a sausage and ate it in front of him, and just made him just lose his little mind.
That would have been good. That would have been good.
Well, I entertained myself while I was playing.
Well, as long as
the
you
others
were
were entertained as well.
As long as
it was
you
one of those
had a good
gaming
time.
sessions that I thought was hilarious because one of the people just could not catch a break. Their rolls were bad, worse, and terrible. They barely succeeded at anything. It was always usually just a atrocious failure at everything they tried.
Lovely.
To the point where all you can do is laugh at it. What can you do? Just laugh.
Kind of like life. At some point, you just go, "Yeah, I give up. I'm just going to go insane along with everything else, and I'll be fine."
Mm-hmm.
You feel like Kevin Bacon in Animal House. Stop! Don't panic. Everything is well. When people are just, a crowd completely running past you, panicked. Yeah, it's like that. You're not drinking coffee?
I also have coffee, but I have some soda left over from the pizza I had before lunch.
I had homemade Chinese leftovers. Sweet and sour pork.
Homemade Chinese.
It was quite yummy. It was yummy last night. It's yummy today.
So what have you been doing over the last week other than having Chinese, homemade Chinese?
Oy vey. As you can see from my tagline, it's recording season again.
It's almost recording season with you.
It is. It is now. God. I need to find a way. It's like today, okay? I recorded a chapter of Station 3, got halfway through another chapter of Station 3, and then plane 1 comes by. These aren't jets. They're fucking prop planes. That thing goes by. So I'm like, okay, it's gone. I can now start recording again. 5 minutes later, plane 2 comes. 5 minutes after plane 2, plane 3 comes. And I'm like, fuck it. I'm done. I'm done. I'm on the verge of going and seeing if I can buy a Stinger missile on the black market. So then the 4th, 5th, and 6th plane come. And I was just like, fuck it. I'm going for a nap. I've had it. Anyway, recording 2 books simultaneously sucks in ways I really hadn't imagined. It pretty much sucks. But at the same time, it's okay. It's just taking a lot more time than I wish it was. But I don't know what book I'm writing right now because I'm writing 3 of them or 4 of them. I need to pick one to majorly focus on, but I think I'm going to have to get through Station 3 recording to get there, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But Station 3 edits are done. I'm waiting on artwork, and I'm waiting for the final version so I can peruse and do the spot checks and all that crap. So I'm still stuck in non-published hell, which probably means this shit will show up Monday, and then as soon as I say yeah go, it'll be published 5 minutes after that with no warning for me, and then I'll just have to find out later that it was published because that's how it works.
It sounds about right, really.
Yeah. Anyway, it's funny. I'm recording again because I'm recording Station 3. I'm finding shit that I should have found in the other editing passes and that the other editor didn't find. And now I'm like, I want to bang my head into the wall. I can't win. You either record the book before you send it to the editor and find all the shit that the editor should have found but won't. And then there's but then the book won't match because the editor will make changes or there'll be some other textual changes. And then the people who use Audible will complain about the fact the book is no longer in sync with their ebook. And my response is sort of like tough shit, but this is the first time I've done it this way. I'm not doing it this way again. Fuck it. I'm recording it before I ever sent it off. I'm fucking done. I'm so pissed. So basically, like the first 2 chapters have got some dings in it that I wish I had found or at least noticed. They're not too bad. They're probably nobody's going to notice but me, but I still stuff I wish I'd fixed. But now that I'm on chapter 4, things are rolling.
sometime I've discovered that when you're doing the final edits on the book, it pays to go back and re-edit the first couple of chapters an extra time before you send it off.
I did, but next time I'm going to edit the first 3 chapters multiple times, but recording them is always the best way for me to edit anyway. Speaking it out loud, which I did this time, but evidently it didn't take. So now it's recording hell. So I'm fixing it as I'm recording, which means it still won't match what's in the fucking ebook. So this entire process was just a goddamn clusterfuck. I'm never happy. I'm never happy. Things never work the way they're supposed to. Why the fuck do I bother doing any of this?
The way to save yourself from that kind of problem is not record your own audio and then never listen to the product when it's done.
Yeah, if only I'd have a podcast if that happened. Yeah, it's kind of a problem. It's still an issue. I mean, at some point I'm going to have to give that up. I just don't know how. And I don't really know what's going to happen to my audience if I leave the podcasting, if they're still going to stick around. And I don't know how many of them are going to stick around if I give that to another audiobook narrator to read.
Don't worry about it, man. Your mom can find other podcasts to listen to.
My God, that's so bad. Such an evil fucker. Anyway, it's the same age-old question. You know, will Paul ever be able to get out of this or figure out a way to do this properly?
I have confidence in you, Paul. When you
you are such a schmuck.
I haven't even finished saying my insult, and you're already calling me a schmuck. Can't you at least do me the courtesy of letting me finish insulting you before?
Well, I was hoping that maybe it was a compliment, but I after I said that, I was like, no, Terry would never compliment. That's not happening. So go ahead with your snark. Go ahead.
Don't worry about it, man. I have complete and utter confidence in you that you will solve this problem and come up with a brand new one that no one ever saw coming to replace it with.
You mean like my characters? Got it.
Yeah, pretty much. Life imitates art.
I'm the clueless main character of my own story, and unfortunately,
what if you were? What if this was some terrible novel and you're just the character?
It is. It is some terrible novel. If you think about the fact that everybody lives in their own reality, this is a really terribly written novel. It's being co-written by me, fate, the environment, the universe, and none of them are good.
Too much passive voice, and you're using second person. That's your problem. Your life is in second person.
And you forgot present tense.
Oh. Ouch.
My life is a novel written in second person in present tense.
Your life is a novel written by Ayn Rand.
Ugh. That could be worse. Could be written by well, there's lots of people. Anyway, I'll stop that. So that's kind of where things are right now. But I'm having more fun recording this than I did Derelict. Much more fun. I think it's because it's not as grim for me. It's more the Black and Station 3 are much more, as fucked up as this sounds, are much less grim. Derelict was. But as usual, the special effects are what's kicking my ass. The fortunate thing is, after 10 more chapters in Station 3, I won't have nearly as many lines to deal with. Or like, I don't know, 15 chapters in. We'll see. Anyway, I should tell you just how bad things are going to get in that book. So, anyway, that's more or less what's going on with me. More or less. Yeah. Yeah, you know.
Did you hear about the latest Brandon Sanderson doings?
Apparently not.
I believe yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, he made a video of himself going out onto Kickstarter and backing just about every book-related Kickstarter that he could find.
Good for him.
Like 300 of them on the video that he backed.
Good for him. Good for him. Now, if only like people like him would actually start a publishing company, but ooh, Terry, they're coming for you, Bubba.
I can't even see what made that noise.
Well, it was either a bird getting an anal exam or, prostate exam or something like that, or it was a cop just trying to let somebody know that they were in his way.
It's in the middle of a neighborhood. I'm not sure what the hell it would have been, but all right, whatever. Put the podcast down and come out of the house with your hands up.
Put the microphone down. Next on, holy shit.
Well, obviously, if that happens, I'll have to take my shirt off before I confront the cops because, that's the way it works, right?
Oh, if you're going to be on the show Cops, you have to be shirtless, shoeless, preferably in your underwear, and look like you haven't showered in about 20 years. You have to, those are the prerequisites to be on Cops, I think, from the episodes I've seen anyway. And you also have to sound like you're completely stoned or drunk or mentally deranged. One of the three. And start screaming about your constipational rights. That's always helpful too.
I totally need constipational rights.
At your age, yes, you do.
I've detected movement in the Constitution of the United States. That's constipation.
Of your ass. Of your ass. I did see something from, I can't remember who tweeted it. Maybe it was Brandon himself. No, it was somebody else. They were referencing, I guess, the story you're talking about. That something like 95% of the book Kickstarters get funded.
I don't know. Maybe
most of them aren't really all that much money. They're not like looking for Brandon Sanderson cash. They're looking like, for 20K or something like that, or often.
No, that's way high from what most of them are looking for.
Yeah.
The ones that I see out there that are looking for it, the vast majority of them are less than $5,000.
Okay. So editing, basically editing, cover, all that kind of crap, plus a little money for the writer to actually get the book done, I'm guessing. I need to go check those out at some point. But yeah, it'd be nice if you could use a Kickstarter as an advance.
I don't know if you could use it in advance, but even though I haven't read them, there were a number of, interestingly enough, Kickstarter projects on how to fund your book on Kickstarter. So I'm not sure. That's like a triple whammy there. A book on funding your book on Kickstarter that was funded on Kickstarter.
Recursively recursive. I sense an infinite loop coming, which usually tells me we're using a Microsoft programming language. Can't believe I said that out loud. Yes, I can. Oh God, Terry's looking for something. This can't work. Can't be good.
I've got a second one over there somewhere, but got that one.
Okay.
It's actually a really heavy book. The paper
does look big.
The paper is like thick and heavy. I'm like, this is not normal paper. This is some serious, hit somebody with this book and pain will be caused. But I think I've got another one somewhere over here. I just don't remember where I may have put it on the shelf. But yeah, there's been a couple that I've supported on that.
It's an interesting idea. I haven't checked any of those out really. I don't spend any time on Kickstarter because I'm fucking broke and have no money to spend on anybody anyway. But I guess I need to go look at those just to satisfy curiosity and get an idea of what happens. But good for Brandon Sanderson. I think that as much shit as we talk about his size of his books, he seems like a pretty decent dude, and he's obviously been a hell of an influence on younger writers, and is definitely in our corner, regardless of the fact that he's been leveled up to God tier.
I know that he has done and continues to do a bunch of college level courses on video, but I've never actually listened to any of them.
I haven't either. The only things I've ever heard him talk on were writing excuses, and that was before he got completely upgraded to God tier. So
we shall call him the God King of publishing.
Yeah, there we go. It's just that was before all the Wheel of Time stuff. It's again looking at the market. it just is kind of crazy. And we're still, at least on Twitter, I'm still seeing people talking about trying to get some of these agents that have left and trying to get in touch with these editors that have left the publishing companies. And I think that's another wrinkle in the process here that it's going to be, it'll be fun to watch how it plays out. I'm curious to see what happens here.
Well, I believe, and I think Brandon had said this as well, that he believes that Kickstarter in going forward is going to be a place where people go to find books.
Very well, might be right.
It definitely worked for the role-playing game industry.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of years ago, they had a huge explosion of people producing RPG supplements and games and all of that nonsense on there. And it's become one of the biggest market shares of Kickstarter since that point.
Yeah, but the people who are going to buy that stuff are really into it. So they're kind of like a niche. I think that's a really big niche, a very, very
and people that buy books aren't?
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. There's a difference between buying a role-playing game and buying a novel.
I only would argue that it's a difference in scale.
That's what I'm saying. It's reuse, right? If you can read a book multiple times, true, but an RPG means that you can hang out with your friends and create an adventure, as many of them as you want in the same universe. It's different. It's a completely different experience.
Yes, but I will toss the but in there. You are correct in everything that you've said, but the point I'm trying to make is that I believe the audience may be as resilient as the one in the RPG groups. The support can be as strong as that, because I've backed a couple of book Kickstarters in there. I've only backed on the ebook level because I just don't have enough space for more physical books. I keep downgrading the number of physical books that I have.
Who the fuck has space in their house?
I obviously need a mansion if I wanted to have all the books that I wanted to have. But I've supported a couple that I've gotten ebooks out of that I still have not gotten around to reading.
I'm not shocked by that.
I mean, I am your this is how writers and readers do. I'll buy that because you can never have too many books. Oh, that looks interesting. Here's my money.
Yeah, and then pretty soon your Kindle library has 17,000 books in it, and you can't remember which ones you've read and haven't read, and your TBR just keeps growing and growing until you run out of space.
Interestingly enough, Amazon added a feature for your sorting on your Kindle devices where it can tell you which books have not been read.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very useful thing to have when you're going, gosh, I really should read something new. What the hell have I not read out of my 5 million books that I have on Amazon?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Audible has the same thing. God, I hate saying their name. Fuck Audible. So then here's my question. If we're going to talk about this, and since you have some knowledge more than I do, because I'm a bozo, how are these?
Very little bit.
Are these books usually finished before the Kickstarter goes up? As in the text
Some are and some are not.
So some are being funded while being written?
Some are funded before they're written.
Okay, so see, it's in advance. That's what I was saying.
No,
earlier.
what I'm saying is if they don't fund, they don't write.
Ah, okay.
Some of them are that way, where this is a fund this and I will write this book. Others are, I've written this book. Now I'd like to get it funded to do it. And there are both cases. Now, interestingly enough, I'm gonna go ahead and mention one of my favorite authors, Reich Spoor, who I follow on Kickstarter, and he's written a bunch of things that I like. And he was funding a new book in a series that is the whole Sailor Moon Cooley series, basically, is how I see it.
Oh, dear God.
It literally is. It's one where it is the magical girls brought into a magical reality life with a regular guy turned into a magical girl. It's incredibly funny. It's like It is as funny as you think it might be.
So gender dysmorphia on top of unreality, on top of the uncanny valley, on top of what the fuck, where the fuck, and who the fuck.
Oh, and don't forget the magic casting rat that is your mentor. You can't miss that, right?
I think the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles gonna sue and shit.
They might sue some stuff there, but he was kickstarting a sequel to that. The first book was Princess Holy Aura. That should tell you lots right there. I went into it going, I just don't know if I'm into this, but I read the book and I loved it. So I was very much into funding the sequel. And sadly, it did not look like it was going to fund. And it didn't look like that book was going to happen. And then some unknown benefactor contributed somewhere in excess of $1,000 to fund it.
Holy shit. Wow.
Which stunned me, stunned the author, stunned everybody in sight. And now the book will happen.
I wonder if it was Brandon Sanderson.
It was months ago. So while it's possible,
it still could have. Yeah, it still
could have been. I have no way of knowing. So far as I know, those events are not connected. But it goes to prove that it can happen. And we personally know people that have tried to fund a Kickstarter for a book that they would write that didn't make the cut, that didn't make that cutoff, didn't earn that amount of money. So no payment was made and no book was written, which saddens me.
If I were going to kickstart something like Signal Decay, for instance, I'm going to write the book regardless. Really what it comes down to is, hey, can I get an advance? I'm going to use this as an advance. I'm going to use this to keep the lights on. I'm going to use this for an editor, for cover artist. Here's some special material you're going to get. And oh, by the way, here are some early chapters you can see and see if this is what you want to do. Unedited, everything else. And, make it kind of gauge interest there, I think would be the right way to do it. But again, since I haven't looked at the process and seen what works and what doesn't, I'm just blue sky in here. Just thinking about how I would like to run it as opposed to how best to run it. Aha.
There's the other one. I remembered that it had the edge on it. I was like, oh, okay. I should be able to spot that at least.
Reference books and things like that really should come in spirals. Because
it does make it easier.
It's so easy to crack a spine and fuck up the book. And it's just so much easier to deal with.
You want to talk another book that was kickstarted by somebody we know?
Uh-oh. No, I'm afraid. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That J. Daniel Sawyer guy. I think we had him on here for that book.
We did. So now he's still on the hook to write another one about some of the other Heinlein stuff. So I don't envy him. That should have been a second Kickstarter. Writing a whole new book. That's a lesson for you folks. Don't make a Kickstarter reward writing a whole brand new book that's going to take you a year plus. Bad. No. Make that a new Kickstarter.
Make that a new Kickstarter. That's the way I would look at it. If you were going to do something like that, I would include like a novella or something on those lines, or a couple of short stories or a couple of essays. But I sure as shit wouldn't put put two books together on a Kickstarter. Unless you were going to say, I'm going to write the entire series as 3 books with one Kickstarter. But even then, I think it's better to split it out. Unless you're Brandon Sanderson and can do whatever the fuck you want. And people will fund it.
Somebody has decided that he doesn't necessarily mind laying on top of me after he's picked up.
Oh.
So kitty progress is made.
More kitty progress. As opposed to my kitty, who needs death, deserves death. Death is coming for him. Trust me. Last night, I'm trying to record. And he decides that because the desk is raised, it's time for him to walk around and fuck with everything. So he was scrabbling on the monitor, trying to use it as a scratching post. He was punching cords, knocking shit over, falling into gaps, and then going crazy. And then he walked across the keyboard and left me an interesting message in my document. At which point I decided I needed a distraction, so I turned on the ceiling fan. And he looked up with these big eyes and went, wow, look at it turn. And then he jumped off the desk so he could sit beneath it and watch. Best cat toy ever.
The wife turned on the ceiling fan in the living room, and this one has never seen a ceiling fan. His eyes got huge and he took off. He didn't know what that was, and he didn't want anything to do with it.
I don't want to get any of that on me.
Yeah, I know you're purring, but you got to get up. Sorry.
Poor Pooty.
No, but the Kickstarter and crowdfunding fiction, I think, is going to become much more prominent. I think you've got the right of it. I think one of the things that you could do if you mess with that, and the camera gets turned around, Kat, I'm going to yell at you. Stop it. Get away from those books. I think I've seen this in a number of different Kickstarters is the book will be written. However, one of the things that they'll do is if I hit this stretch goal, I'll increase the word count and add some extra stuff to it. Add some extra scenes, add some short stories that fill in some of the gaps, do these other things. Yeah. So you can mix and match having the book completed and enhancing it in some way.
Yeah, if I was going to do that, say with Station 3, I would have said, okay, Station 3 is done. If we hit the stretch goal, I'll write the prequel about Handley 5. And then that would be a novella for as a bonus. And I'm probably going to write that story anyway, because I want that. I want to go back to that character. I love that character so much. I want to go back to him. And I love that world so much. I want to go back to it. The world building, the universe I built. The crazy shit. Because EETs are cool. And I want to write another book with them. What are you doing?
Looking at other things that you can add to your book.
Oh, fuck.
One of the Reich Spoor added these into his book Kickstarter as stretch goals. Little coins.
Challenge coins?
Little challenge type coins with art and so forth that came from the universe. And I was certainly willing to pony up for something like that because I thought that was way cool.
I can't believe I didn't include challenge coins in Derelict. I may have to fix that in the next leg. Since I'm writing that book too, god damn it. Help me, Terry. I can't figure out what I'm supposed to be writing.
Like I'm any help with this. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be writing. I'm a fifth of the way into this novel, and I know where it's going, but I've already taken a good hard left turn inside this going, all right, now I'm saying, okay, how do I get back on course?
Yeah.
How do I overcome this and get back to where I need to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I think that that's actually a plus with the readers, because if I don't know what's going to happen, they sure as hell don't either.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I guess it was like a third of the way through Station 3. I was having a real problem with it. And it's because I couldn't make all the science work. And in my head anyway. And that's when I said, you know what? I'm not writing hard science fiction. This isn't hard science fiction. Why are you trying to
wave
make
a little hand?
Yeah, why are you trying to make it hard science fiction? The technology exists. Don't explain it. They just use it and fucking go. And I went, oh, okay. And guess what? The book wrote itself after that pretty much. But it was, getting hung up on that kind of crap that kind of drives me crazy, because I love hard sci-fi. And I liked the Soul and Beyond, where I'm mixing hard sci-fi with hand-wavium, because the characters can't possibly know what the hell's going on, because things are outside of their technological know-how. And so it seems even to the readers like magic. But I still love the idea of having to make things make sense with atmospheres of pressure, chemicals and atmospheres, things like that, dealing with radical temperatures, the whole 9 yards. And then, of course, gravity. Gravity's a bitch.
Talking Kickstarters, this isn't book Kickstarters. And I will say this about the book Kickstarters first.
Easy for you to say.
It's in its infancy. what happens now and how people find ways to kickstart their books going forward, the sky is the limit. There's no hard and fast rules of what you must do, what options you have to include. You can just about do anything you'd like because it's wild, wild west, and that's a good thing.
Oh, Terry, you're giving me really bad ideas.
But going back to one of the things you can do with Kickstarter is you can fund things that are outside the normal realm of what you think could be done in other ways. And I'm going to use an RPG Kickstarter as an example. It just arrived today. Haven't even had a chance to look at it yet.
Another one you won't ever play. Coyote and Crow.
This was written by folks from the Native American cultures.
Okay.
And it's a role-playing game that basically, if I remember the pitch right, it's a world that might have existed if they had, not been interfered with, not been other conquered. People had not been there. It's not one to say, it's not a anti-conquest type of role-playing game.
It's the conquest never happened.
What if that never happened? What if there was not? What if these were the only people on the earth type of thing? I don't know that they're the only people on the earth.
Only people on the continent.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm saying I'm not even sure that there are anyone but the Native American tribes in the world. I haven't looked at the book closely enough to know for sure, but somebody said, I want to write something for this that I think would be really cool. And they set a fairly low threshold for meeting it. And then word of it got out and it exploded. It just went nuts. And They made so much money on this thing that it wildly exceeded what they thought they were going to be able to do. It just goes, it's what I'm using this is as a positive example of, if you can think it, there is probably an audience out there that is hungering for it.
This goes back to the, if you make it, they will come.
Yeah.
If you build it, they will come. See, now you're giving me ideas on kickstarting the Black. And I don't know how that would work since it's already been published. But since it needs new covers, new edits, and everything else, and probably professionals as opposed to me recording the audiobook, I don't know whether that would make any sense for a Kickstarter or not.
You'd have to do some research.
Yeah, would.
Take a look out there and see what types of projects are out there, what people are looking to fund it with, what their goals are. Is it possible? Sure. I think that it could be done. But one of the flaws of going into Kickstarter is setting your goal too high.
Agreed completely.
The sky is the limit when people start supporting you. If you set a relatively low threshold for making something happen, then everything beyond that is gravy.
Right.
And it can go as high as it can go. But if you set an arbitrarily high starting point saying, I'm going to pay for everything in my own time and all this that I'm doing, and I want my book to sell, and I'm going to say $20,000 and I'll fund my book. That's probably not going to get funded. Although, depending on who you are, maybe it will get funded.
Yeah, if you're an unknown, probably not, though.
But in any case, there is some logic to put there and say, even if I know I need to make $5,000 to make this work, I could set the goal at $1,000 and it will almost certainly make it, because if something is funded, there's more of a drive for people to support it then because they know it's going to happen.
Right, which is one of the problems I think Indiegogo has.
Indiegogo has two different methods of funding. One of them is they'll get the money even if it doesn't reach the goal, but they also have the other one where you have to reach the goal.
Correct. But I think the if you fund, you end up more on the front page as a Kickstarter or whatever as another project that made it. Don't you get a little bit more? Don't you get a little more PR if your Kickstarter makes it, so to speak, than you do if not?
They have some method of picking Kickstarters that are loved, Kickstarters we love. And I don't think it's a personal choice. I think it's a certain performance metric. I could be wrong.
Algorithms.
Probably so. My guess is that if your thing funds and shows good momentum, that it'll get more momentum.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I just don't think I'm smart enough to manage all that shit.
Maybe I need to loan you my crowdfunding book and you can mine it for ideas.
Have time. I still wouldn't have time. Son, we need to get you away from that ice. You're killing me here.
Sorry.
At least
I'm almost done with this drink.
Fucking crunching.
Only a little bit left.
At least you're not crunching into the mic. Like you did that one episode that we had to toss. That was a long time ago, though. That was a long time ago. This is the first time you've had ice clinking around on the show in a while.
I usually don't have cold drinks. It's only coffee for the most part.
Yeah, today you're just sucking. Bring a straw, bozo.
I blame Brandon Sanderson for this.
Don't blame Brandon Sanderson for jack shit. Don't do that. Don't do that.
If Brandon Sanderson easily found, and I heard the word viable tossed around, that he supported 300 viable Kickstarters in the publishing niche. That's a lot of Kickstarters.
Yep.
That means there's already a lot of activity going on Kickstarter for publishing.
So is this something you've thought about doing?
Well, I supported 2 Kickstarters about funding a book through crowdfunding. No. I didn't do that because I wasn't considering it.
All right. Are you thinking, what are you thinking about kickstarting?
I'm not. I'm one of those people that I like thinking about options. Right now, I'm so busy doing all kinds of things that I'm unsure what I would do. I don't know that I would have time to do anything now.
Right. Exactly. Therein lies the problem.
If I was going to kickstart something, I think it would probably be the first 3 books of a new series.
Didn't we just say you should kickstart those individually?
I've seen some people do kickstarting of more than 1 book. And if you've already got 3 books, that's more of an incentive for people to support it.
But you would have written those 3 books first, correct?
I would have to have written those 3 books first. And that's a challenge. And it would be yet one more series that I need to feed.
Yeah.
So it may or may not happen that I do anything with Kickstarter, but I do consider my options.
It's an interesting one.
If I had not started publishing this new series with Variant, which I had supported these Kickstarters before that came around, I might have been more prone to doing something. But right now, it's not something that I can afford the time to do.
Yeah, my dance card is already fucking full. Thank you very much. God damn it. I'm writing at least 2 books simultaneously and recording 2.
Have you considered cloning yourself?
That technology does not exist in a form that I would use at this point.
So it wouldn't be like what's his name?
I'd end up like Jeff
having multiple copies of himself doing stuff.
No, I'd end up like Jeff Goldblum in The Fly. That's exactly how that would work.
Yikes.
I didn't say Vincent Price because that one wasn't nearly as disgusting. So we'll just go with that one, Jeff Goldblum. Anyway, I'm just flabbergasted by how many different fucking upheavals we've had in the industry in the last, 10 years.
Yeah.
Is this the next one? Is Kickstarter really going to be the next disruptor?
I don't know if it's going to be a full-blown disruptor. One other aspect of things that I've seen with authors is I personally know 3 authors, or 3 groups of authors anyway, that have done RPGs of their game world. So I'm sure there are more out there doing. In fact, I know there are more out there.
You mean their
but
novel,
I personally know of
novel
3.
world?
No, I mean like this.
I'm confused by what you said. Did you mean novels of their game world or RPGs of their game world? Very confused. Okay. Right.
Chris Fox writes a novel series called the Magitek Chronicles, and he created an RPG.
That's not what you
of that
said.
world. So did Chris Kennedy with his 4 Horsemen universe, which it hasn't been produced yet. And tomorrow, the Nick Cole and Jason Enspatch, I think I got his name right, have a series called, I think it's The Ruin, that they're RPGing that ends tomorrow. They'll have a game system out. So that's 3 that I personally know that have done this.
I'd love to turn something like Station 3, or at least the EETs, into an RPG system. That would be fantastic. I think people would have a lot of fun with that.
Forgotten Ruin. That's what it was. That's the series.
Yeah. It's cool. I mean, I like the idea a lot of doing something like that with Derelict, or creating a module for Mira or something along those lines. I think that would be a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work that I don't have time for, nor the talent for. But
me either.
It's nice
Somebody's
to know
asked
people
me,
are out there
hey,
doing
you thought about doing that? No, I don't have the time for it. It's not happening.
The only way I could do it is if I handed it off to somebody and I was basically the consultant or the benevolent dictator and said no on this and yes on this, and basically just looked for the stuff that I thought was majorly wrong or was major left turn, and then argue about it and figure out exactly what the ramifications are and the reasons why. But I would never try and do that myself. I'm just too ignorant.
I know for a fact that it can go horribly wrong, because one of the Kickstarters that I supported for this actually funded something like 2 years ago, and it is still not produced. It's still being worked on slowly, but it is not there yet.
Yeah, I helped kickstart a game that was an augmented reality game, which was fucking insane. Basically, you walked around with your phone and your earphones or whatever, and as you were walking around, the thing was mapping your house. But on top of that, it would randomly insert ghosts and shit like that into your house.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was spooky as shit. I don't think it ever came out though, unfortunately. But the the early videos were just nuts, because the guy had his own. He was showing how they got some of the voices, and he took like his 4-year-old kid and did some funky visual effects with them, but used their actual voice, and it was creepy as shit. It was just nuts. And I would not be surprised if we see a lot of those AR games like that come out. And of course, horror is the easiest one to do AR with. Not real tough, not real difficult. So yeah, I'm familiar with the kickstarting shit that never appears.
I'm looking back now to see when it actually funded. It looks like mid-March of 2019.
Ooh, that is a while ago.
A while back. Progress is still slowly being made on the product, but youch. That's one of the problems that you need to be aware of with Kickstarter, is even when you back something, it's not a guarantee you're ever going to see it.
Yeah, I don't want to be that guy.
No one wants to be that guy.
Well, that's why I think it makes more sense to have the book at least half finished or completely finished before you start kickstarting it. That would just be for me.
Some of the things that people do as higher tier levels is get people that pledge to those higher tier levels input into a character. The sky literally is the limit of the types of things you can offer as perks for these things.
Do you think that gets around some of the some of the bullshit that goes along with who do I buy this book from? Do I buy it from Amazon? Do I buy it from BNN? Do I buy it from Nook? Whatever. The fact that you can basically get it straight from the Kickstarter. Do you think the fact that you're supporting an independent author is part of the reason why people are really flocking to that?
I believe that it probably has something to do with it, but I think that it's much more likely that when you're supporting the Kickstarter that the author is putting out there, that it's invariably going to be more than just the book. There's going to be other perks that come along with it. It's a personalized experience, if you will.
God, so much stuff to think about with this. Another goddamn plan I need to put together.
I remember, God, it had to have been 10 or 15 years ago. Somebody was doing something, and as a reward for it, they would record a voicemail for you, i.e., something you'd put on your voicemail for other people to hear. That used to be a thing.
Is that back when people were still buying things like, I don't know, screensavers?
Pretty much. Now, one of the Kickstarters that I support with an author is somebody that writes, we will go ahead and call spicy fiction.
Not erotica, but spicy.
It is
borderline
science fiction / fantasy storylines with erotic content tossed in.
Okay.
And
so the erotica is not the point. It's just part of it.
It is just part of it. Although I suspect that's what gets that guy a fair chunk of his audience. And one of the things that he has for stretch goals is artwork that is just as spicy of the characters.
Oh no. I get that. Totally get that. See, if I was going to do something like that, like for instance, if I'm going to kickstart Signal Decay, I would put up as a perk, and I would already have a 3D artist on hand to create a fly through of the station. So in other words, map out the entire station, make it all 3D, add the lights and the creepiness to it, and maybe have some of those scenes animated. But at that point, you're making a fucking movie, so. Then again, that could also serve as a treatment for a movie. Hey, Mr. Studio Exec, here's the storyboard for the movie right here. The various YouTube videos with maybe some text between the scenes.
I sent you a link in private chat. It's not to anything involved with the one that I just talked about. It's actually to the one that Reich Spoor did.
Backer kit.
It's the after action sort of thing, but you can see the art that he had done for the characters as part of the image on that.
Okay.
Now, if you look at this, it shows that it funded with $10,221 out of 10,000. So it like barely squeaked by. Somebody waited until last minute and donated and pledged more than $1,000 to make it reach that goal. So was that an angel investor?
That's an angel investor. Yeah. It swoops in and says, here's some money. Bye. I don't want anything. Just here's some money. Go do what you do.
I feel confident that whoever this was is going to there's going to be something that they had to do in the book. The book's not written. I would wager that concessions may have been made.
You are never allowed to have ice again, ever.
Sorry.
Ever. Do you hear me?
It's certainly not what I normally do.
I know, but you're still doing it.
I can always belch. That's what Paul does.
Yes, but I usually melt. Mute myself first.
You usually melt. Tell me more.
Do you remember that guy, Alan Baxter?
Yes.
He's a total shit.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, total shit. I think I mentioned this last week. I can't remember, but he put out a book called The Gulp. And it's like 4 or 5 interconnected stories that take place in this weird little Australian town. And it ended on such a humongous cliffhanger of a sort that I literally wanted to reach through the book, grab him, and strangle him. And I was like, oh, now I know how my readers feel. Anyway, it is probably one of the best eldritch horror books written in like the last 40 years. It is so incredibly good. Lovecraft can suck it. This one is so good with the characters, with the feeling of unreality, the uncanny valleys being explored, and a lot of what the fuck was that, and that he doesn't explain. So you kind of have to like ferret out what's going on. It was so popular that he immediately said, okay, I'll write a second one. And he started giving away those stories on Patreon. And so the new book is, I think, coming out like April 12th or something like that, the fall. I'm already a patron of his, but I haven't gone and grabbed my free stuff yet to peruse what he's written thus far. But I think that if you're trying to write eldritch uncanny horror in the theme of Lovecraft, you really need to go check out this series. Really need to check out this series. It's absolutely freaking incredible. Just really good ideas and really twisted shit. I love it. It was good. I stayed up till 3 a.m. finishing it, hating him. Just hating him so much. I finished it and went, now I gotta sit here for the next 30 minutes and growl because there's no more to read. Bastard. So kickstarting something like that would be cool too. A series of interconnected stories, something like a town. I mean, basically, it's like Faulkner's Yoknapatawpha to a certain degree, which is cool. Not that you have any idea what I'm talking about because you're ignorant.
None.
Ignorant. Borderline illiterate.
Ignorant.
You're very ignorant.
Oh, I'm far closer to borderline than that.
You're definitely ignorant on your literature. Classical literature. That's okay. I'm ignorant in space opera, so it all works out. Obviously. So you've got a lot of shit on your plate. I've got a lot of shit on my plate.
It's weird how much, the more you do, the more you have to do.
It's almost like the more I do, the less I get accomplished. If that makes any sense. I mean, I had a day where, I got 5,000 words on Oceania. I knocked out 2 chapters in one day, and I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Now I have to record them. Now I have to edit them. Now I have to record them. Fuck. Which means that's 4 or 5 hours. So day basically gone, or a day or two gone from that bullshit. So it's the constant grind. I don't know how much more.
You need to go ahead and, make an AI voice of your own voice.
No. One of my patrons was like, I don't know shit about audio editing, but can't you just go through all of your old works and splice together the words? I'm like, do you have any fucking idea how long that would take? It would take me a year to do a page. And it would sound so horrible. It would sound so disconnected.
Obviously you need to deep fake yourself so that you can go ahead and have a fake recording of you fake recording the words you type in.
Well, why not just let the AI write the book and make it totally fake?
Well, that would be one way to improve the quality, I suppose.
Ow! Ow, God. Ouch. You hurt my soul. I'm going to end the broadcast now.
That's totally inaccurate. Everyone knows you don't have a soul.
Yeah, you're right about that. I sold it for my good looks.
You were ripped off.
You're right. Satan's got a really nasty sense of humor, the fucker. Anyway, never make a deal with the devil. There's always a line in there. There's some kind of gotcha, and you'll never see.
Read the small print.
There's no fine print. That's the problem. There's only, it's the law, right? There's only ambiguity. There's only ambiguity.
Oh, I saw somebody do that in a lit RPG book that I was reading. They agreed to a contract with someone, and it sounded pretty good. Right up until the point where somebody pointed out, you signed up for 3 years in local time, but you're now in a different universe and time flows differently. So that's like about 15,000 years. Damn it.
There's a great Simpsons episode where they get the monkey's paw, and Homer's last wish is for a ham sandwich or something. And best ham sandwich, and he goes through, don't want this, don't want that, don't want this, don't want that. None of this weird shit's gonna happen. Just a great ham sandwich. And then he takes a bite and he starts screaming about the fact there's no mustard. See, always a gotcha.
Can't argue with that. So what do you think of our weather? It's 80 fucking degrees in March.
I think summer is going to be hell. I think summer is going to be absolute fucking hell. And I think we're going to have a lot of power outages. That's what I think. But you know, I'm negative Nancy.
You're Debbie Downer.
Debbie Downer, negative Nancy, pessimistic Paul. You know, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I got nothing, dude. It's like morning in the 50s, highs in the 80s, mid 80s. And yeah, it's March, and most of the state is under drought conditions. It's going to be a great summer.
Well, just imagine if it's, this bad for us, it's going to be terrible for California.
Yeah, it's going to be terrible for our food supplies too. And I'm not just talking about Ukraine. I'm also talking about the entire West Coast where, most of our fruits are grown.
Doomed.
Doomed. So they found microplastics in somebody's body for the first time that had been ingested.
What are microplastics?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Not too long ago, there were these dipshits in the skin lotion, etc., ad infinitum, that put in microbeads because they were supposed to help the liquid stay there. It was supposed to help the liquid, do some abrasion on your skin, all the good stuff for your skin and dermis and all this other kind of crap. The problem is that the stuff does not get caught by filters because it's so small. So it's been jettisoning itself straight into the fucking ocean. And in the process, fish have been ingesting it, which means we've been ingesting it. For how long? Don't know. It's just like they found rubber from tires in the Arctic, in Antarctica. And they're finding it all over the place now. And now they're finding this stuff, the microplastics and everything else, and the chemicals associated with them on the bottom of the ocean. And as always, I sit there and I go, okay, what's eating that? Something's going to start eating that. Because it'll happen. Something will start eating it. And then very bad things could happen. Because I'm a horror writer and that's what I do. But it's scary because if you think about it, and I've thought about this too, we don't know what kind of long-term damage preservatives have done to us. We know that cooking with certain metals that was popular back in the 30s through the 50s ended up creating some cancer-causing issues. And there's some theories that's also been one of the reasons why, like my mama and papa's generation was so riddled with Alzheimer's, is because of those issues. So you sit there and you go, all right, what's the next shoe to drop? What's the next shoe that's going to drop? Have we all fried our genitals by having our phones in our pockets? Are we creating more and more birth defects by having our phones in our pockets? Are we doing other damage to ourselves by sitting in front of these monitors all fucking day? Questions?
Could be.
Questions
I don't know.
I don't have an answer. I don't really want to go back to, pre-computer, but or pre-preservative even. But you just sit there and you wonder about this stuff. What's the ramifications over time? And the unseen ramifications of any technology are just mind-blowing at times. Another fertile place to write stories. Anyway, I think that maybe you need to do a little more science sniffing around the ocean, Bubba. That's what I think.
Most of my stuff takes place in space.
Oceans are in space. They're on other planets, which are in space. You land on other planets, which are in space.
All right, I know how I could do that.
There you go. Why not have a water planet?
Because I'm afraid that Kevin Costner is going to show up if that happens.
Oh, for Christ's sake. You really had to make a water world reference. You really had to do that. Why?
I did because...
Why? Why would you do that?
I'm a glutton for punishment. But no...
No, you're a glutton for my punishment.
Well, that's it. I'm a glutton for punishing everybody else, apparently. At some point, maybe in the book that I'm currently writing, I can see visiting an underwater city. Maybe. It's too early to know whether or not that is likely or not. But it's a possibility.
From a technological aspect, let's think about this for a second. Wouldn't it be easier to build a city that floats than a city that's underwater?
The reason why it would have to be a city under the water is because I'm in the middle of an alien invasion. Anything on the surface is a target.
Bombarded. Okay.
So right, if I'm gonna have anything with the ocean, it has to be out of sight, and that could explain why the aliens didn't know it was there. If I did that.
Okay. But I'm just saying in general.
Coming up with the reasoning of why it was built.
That's a completely different animal.
Here, actually, I think I can figure this out. Maybe it was some type of specialized underwater mining.
Yep.
And the city grew up around it.
But from a technological aspect, just like we've talked about with landing spaceships versus using elevators. Elevators so much better.
Space elevators for the win.
Would it make more sense and be more technologically feasible to build a floating city as opposed to building an underwater city? My feeling is yes.
One of the challenges of building a floating city is storms.
Mm-hmm.
If it's floating, it is subject to the tides, the currents, and all of the destructive things that can happen on the surface.
And so
if it's built under the water, it is a little less subject to that.
Except you have pressure, and now if there's any chink in anything, you've got water rushing in, which could kill you.
You're trading one set of problems for another set of problems.
But if you make a float big enough, as we've proven over and over and over again the last 100 years, it gets pretty damn hard to capsize it. And it gets pretty hard to rock it. It has to be a hell of a storm to do that kind of damage.
It would still be subject to developing, like you said, chinks.
Mm-hmm.
If you built something large like that and it gets hit by a hurricane, there's going to be stress.
But that's a lot easier to deal with if you're above the water than if you're below. I think.
Don't know that I agree with that sentiment.
Underwater, you have pressure. You have no oxygen, which means everything has to be generated for you. You have to expend a lot of energy to do all that stuff. Whereas floating, you've got solar, you've obviously got access to hydro as well, which, yes, you would have that underwater too. But if you're not 500 meters behind, but below the water or something like that, there are all these other problems or if you are, there's all these other problems that come about as opposed to building a floating city, in my mind. Yes, you still have problems, but I still think the floating city is better.
It probably is. It would certainly be easier to do from a technological standpoint. But you got me thinking about the underwater thing. Thinking about power, imagine if they placed this not too distant from a magma vent
Yeah,
under the
that's
water.
what I knew you were going to go there. I knew you were going to go there.
That would be an interesting way to power it without having to have sunlight.
Yeah, and I think that's how you would do it even today if we could ever, get stuff going. There I can't remember if I shared the link with you or not, but there's a company that is today in Texas, no less. They have developed with MIT some kind of special laser that they can use to basically vaporize rock. And their plan is to go 10 kilometers down.
I remember seeing the article about that, but I didn't read it. I saw the headline go by.
Yeah, the idea is that they could do this anywhere, technically. You wouldn't have to choose a volcanic hotspot like a hot springs or Yellowstone or a volcano or something like that, because you're drilling down to where the magma actually is, or to where the Earth's temperature is high enough that would vaporize steam and turn it into superheated steam.
Which is far less deep than one might suspect.
Yeah.
You don't have to go down very far to have the temperature spike.
Yes, but for areas that don't have any thermal activity, it can be an issue. Basically they've got the whole reasoning why they're going down so deep, and I can't remember what it is. Regardless, if you were able to do something like that where you could vaporize the rock and get down there, and my question is, how do you keep the steam from condensating, on its way back up? Unless somehow you're going to build the turbine down there in that heat, which I don't think is what you want to do. So I'm not really sure how all that's going to work, but it is an interesting concept, and it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder why we really haven't seen anybody do that in science fiction that I know of. Probably somebody.
I know that there are some mines in South America where they've got these gigantic crystals underground, and it is hideously hot in there. People can't survive without protective cover for any kind of time at all.
Yeah, I talk about that in Super Deep, where they, which is that well that's out there, or as well, essentially, that they got in Russia.
It says here, the rule of thumb is the temperature rises about 3 degrees centigrade for every 100 meters you go down into the crust. So about 3 kilometers down, you'd hit the boiling point of water.
Right, but to get superheated steam, you have to go a lot lower.
Okay, I don't know much about superheated steam. I don't know anything about
just that. Boiling isn't enough. Basically, the idea is you get the steam up to like 1,000 degrees.
So roughly 3 times that.
At least.
So 9 to 10 kilometers. So that matches up with what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, you need superheated steam to turn the turbine. Regular steam is not enough. We have to turn it into superheated steam. But Sigler covers this in Earth Core, and Fitzroy about the heat problem. And he came up with
I was totally going to say that these people that were doing this obviously have not read Earth Core.
If you haven't read Earth Core and you're interested in crazy shit going on underground, go get that book. It's excellent. And the sequel is too. But the idea of the suits you would have to get down there and stay down there for any length of time, man, oh man, the water circulating systems, everything else that would have to go down, go on there. It'd be like walking into Chernobyl, when they were trying to put out the fires where they could only stay in there for like 30 seconds at a time before they would just start frying. That is a terrifying prospect. No fucking way would I take that job. No way. You could not pay me enough money to take that job. Not gonna happen. No, thank you. No, thank you. Anyway, I like this idea of a floating city, damn it. Didn't the Bobaverse have that on one of the worlds? Was it Riker, the world he was on? Where they had the mats and everything else that the cities were sitting on top of?
Maybe.
Do you remember?
I don't.
I think that's where it was. I think it was in the second or third Bobaverse book. I don't remember.
There's a cave buried about 300 meters down below the mountains in Chihuahua, Mexico. That's right over a magma thing that has these huge crystals in it. that you have to have those suits to go in there to survive, to explore any at all. The temperature inside is 130 degrees, 36 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's actually not bad. That's survivable.
Right here.
Unless you're saying it's 136 degrees Celsius.
No. I'm trying to figure out if that's actually what the temperature is in there, and I'm not sure. That may have been talking about what the minimum temperature to form those crystals are.
Depending on the type of crystals, they're going to radiate heat like a mofo, just like salt does.
The air temperature inside was 113 degrees Fahrenheit and 100% humidity.
So, Houston. Got it.
Houston, all the time.
Hey, they just sent a bunch of Texans down, or Houstonians down there. No problem. You don't need a suit. That's a lot of Gatorade.
That's like, oh, this is good barbecue weather. Bring in the grill.
Hell no, not with that humidity. It ain't. 100% humidity. Raining boiling water. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? Ew, no thank you. No thank you. So when are you going to buy your portion of the moon?
Am I supposed to?
I read an article, I guess it was last week or the week before, about how certain countries are already talking about carving up the moon into ownership areas. Now, you want to talk about the most artificial bullshit of all time, guaranteed to end up in fucking war, and that is that. How would you carve up a celestial body like that to try and basically say, if you can get to the moon, you can have this peace? Who owns the moon? Humanity doesn't own the moon. Our solar system owns the moon.
I believe that the decision was made that humanity in general owns the celestial bodies in the solar system, not an individual country or person.
Right.
The exclusion on that is if someone mines asteroids or something, the fruits of their labor are theirs, if not the body itself.
This goes into Acme Corp buys asteroid 11347 and starts mining it, or said corporation buys, I don't know, 50 square kilometers on the moon that has high He3 deposits, whatever.
We've got a regolith cruncher that can go and get that He3 right now, baby.
There you go. See the movie Moon if you don't know what we're talking about. Moon is a fantastic film about a guy who's mining He3 on the moon. He's all alone. It's a fantastic film. Highly recommend it. I guess my point is that what's forcing people to respect those boundaries?
Nothing.
You protect absolutely
nothing. Just like in the wild, wild west where, you had the gold rush.
Claim jumpers.
You've got claim jumpers. And the only way you can protect your claim is by the force of your own arms.
And here we go. Now we have the arms race on the fucking moon, on the asteroids. Now we have people who are funding pirates to go steal He3 deposits. We have separate nations. Say China has a mine that's real popular. Well, America doesn't like that too much, so they go try and take it, or vice versa. Your mine is too close to my mine. We're hitting the same veins. That's not cool. You need to give us our He3 or gold or whatever the fuck it is we've got back. And then they figure out how to basically, if there's any kind of water on this world, stop the water from going to one area or another. The sabotage. I mean, fuck me. It gets. Oh,
I think it was Heinlein in one of his books. It may have been The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. I'm not sure. But the people that are living and mining things on the moon get into a go around with the people on Earth that want to regulate what they're doing. And they turn the mass driver that is sending refined minerals into Earth orbit
Oh no.
into a weapon to drop those same refined slugs into the gravity well on Earth as an example of why you should not fuck with us.
Uh-huh. That's one way to do it. And therein lies another question. Who is going to keep the solar system demilitarized? You
Obviously,
can't.
the Space Patrol. We need the Space Patrol to keep the universe safe.
Yeah, what fucking country is going to head that effort?
Well, you know, that I'm pulling the Space Patrol from Heinlein's juvenile novels.
Okay, yeah.
Where they had the patrol in there. And it was not a governmental thing. I think that it was something like the United Nations, but it wasn't the United Nations.
Right.
Because I'm not sure when the United Nations came around. Maybe these were written before that. Maybe he just, made something up like it. But it was a supranational organization that patrolled the system looking for those high-level issues.
Yeah, the League of Nations would have been around when he was writing. I can't remember.
I'm not sure when the League of Nations ended and the United Nations began. That's a little bit far back in my history.
It is. I can't remember exactly what happened. I just know we helped found the League of Nations, but never joined it. Because America's weird like that.
1945 is when the United Nations was formed. Okay. So they existed when Heinlein wrote these books.
Okay.
And maybe the Space Patrol was something put forth by the United Nations. Obviously, that's not the United Nations of today, where they can't tie their own shoes without committing a war crime somewhere.
I have no response to that. It brings up a problem. Who owns the ocean?
International waters, I'm pretty sure that nobody does. Or perhaps collectively we all do.
Unless you're buying an area and saying, this is mine, but who are you paying to buy that area if nobody owns the ocean, but we all own the ocean?
To buy either a part of the moon or something under the ocean, you have to actually be able to give something to someone that has the authority to have possessed it in the first place.
Exactly. So basically you're buying the Brooklyn Bridge with the understanding that this is my bridge, even though you don't really own it. There's no deed that says I own this. And more importantly, there's no international body to adjudicate and prosecute to make sure that you own it.
I paid money a good number of years ago to have a star named after my wife. Obviously, that has no binding authority on anyone because it's just what was published in a book.
Right. No astronomer has to respect it. No astrophysicist has to respect it.
We've already proven that astronomers don't have to respect anything because they downgraded Pluto to a dwarf planet because they're morons.
Oh, fuck that trumped up piece of ice.
Fuck that one planet right there. That one in particular.
Right there. Fuck that planet. I did. I did horrible things to it in Derelict. I just keep thinking about this idea of ownership, and how does this work with star systems?
You know what you say with, I'm going to go ahead and put this out there. You can go ahead and put all the curlicues and fancies on it that you like, but boiled down to the very minimum, ownership of anything comes down to possession is 9/10 of the law.
Yeah, but what does that mean when you're talking about whole planets, whole asteroids?
That means when somebody tries to fuck with you, you have to drop a nuke on them.
It also means you have to have the arms to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
Just
welcome to the gold rush, baby.
Is it gonna fucking end well? Anyway,
you know what's you say that's what's going to be the problem. That's not going to be the problem. Here's the problem. Somebody is going to go out to the asteroid belt and find a really, really juicy asteroid that's filled with all kinds of transuranics and very
iridium, tungsten, gold.
They're going to go ahead and very carefully, very, very very gently move that thing so its orbit changes so that it will come into Earth orbit, and they're going to screw it up, and they're going to cause an extinction level event by dropping it into the planet.
This sounds too much like Don't Look Up.
You know, I've been thinking of this a long time before Don't Look Up comes around. So this is my theory on the end of humanity right there, is they commit suicide by being stupid and dropping an asteroid on their own heads.
That sounds completely like something our dumbasses would do. And see, who's
heard it here, folks. I predicted this first.
Who's going to legislate that crap? Who's going to just enforcement of any of this stuff is so far beyond.
So if Elon Musk went ahead and went out to do this to an asteroid, how would anyone stop him?
It's not a question. Well, it changed the orbit.
Yeah. How would you stop him?
Put a bullet in his fucking brain.
If he's in space, his space core, because he's been talking about moving up to space for a while. So let's say he does that. Let's say he launches himself into orbit, sets up a space station in orbit, and uses that as a jumping platform to get to the asteroid belt. And he's an old man living in space, been there for 30 years, and he decides to relocate asteroid kick your butt into Earth orbit. And everybody says, that's a really bad idea, Elon. And he says, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it?
Again, enforcement. It's something that it's just like security, right? It's the last thing anybody thinks about, which is why it's the first thing that's going to go wrong.
There's a thing there that with everything you've got there, when somebody decides to do something, you say, no, you can't do that. And their response is, make me.
Right. Which is why I'm saying that we as a race of people, as humanity itself, this is shit we need to be thinking about. This is shit we need to be talking about. This is shit that is actually coming real soon to us.
We can't make decisions in a unanimous fashion about things that are completely in our best interest as a species.
That's right. So like Almond Joy is the best candy bar, not Mounds. Fuck that shit.
See, which one was the first one?
Almond Joy.
If it's got coconut in it, it is an abomination.
See, here we go. You're probably one of those fuckers who doesn't like pineapple on their pepperoni pizza too.
I actually don't have any preference for pineapple. I think I want to try Hawaiian just because I haven't had one. I think it would probably be pretty good.
It is. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And right now there's a bunch of our listeners who are throwing things at their podcasts.
You know, I'm willing to consider perversion as long as pineapple is involved.
Oh, God. You know, when I go back and edit this, I'm going to make sure I steal that line. I will consider any kind of perversion if pineapple's involved. Oh, God. It sounds like something, fuck, I can't remember what the bot's name is in Futurama. Glutton bot or something like that. Yeah, that. Hedonist bot. That's what it is. Hedonist bot. I just think this is a really that would be a fascinating series to read. Is that how does all that work? How is it going to work? And what could go wrong? We
can't force anyone on Earth to do anything.
No.
I mean, all it takes is one look at the United Nations right now to see how utterly useless it is as a body. It's a bunch of talking heads doing talking shit.
G20, OPEC, all in the same boat.
Now that's different though. But when you've got some group that has automatic veto power inside an organization, like the permanent members of the Security Council, it's automatically nothing but talking heads.
I agree. Which is why Russia needs to be removed as a permanent security member.
There's times where I think the United States needs to be removed as a permanent
member.
member.
Fucking comment. Anyway,
I am a huge fan of the United States, but sometimes we do some stupid shit.
Sometimes. In the last 40 years of my life, I can think of so many stupid things we have done. And looking at history, I can think of 250 years of stupid shit we've done.
You know, pretty much history is staggering from one crisis to another. And we're basically the drunken sailor of history, staggering down the boardwalk of history.
Yeah, because we have we as people have no control over it. We're just along for the ride, whether we want to be or not. We're locked in this car that's headed for a cliff, and we can't get out, and it just keeps accelerating, and nobody's hitting the brake.
The driver's going, "Anybody want pineapple pizza?" And all the passengers can do is argue about whether that's a good idea while the cliff comes hurtling
There
closer.
we go. Can we kickstart the brake? Can we have a Kickstarter to put a braking system on this car that's hurtling at 1,000 miles an hour? We're going to submit
stepping on the brake to the UN Security Council and see what they think.
That's actually a good way of putting it. I've just been thinking about all this since I saw that article. It's like, how are you going to get anybody to agree where they're going to be on the moon? At this point, it's like where we land, that's ours. For say 50 square kilometers or whatever, that is our area. Don't fuck with it.
There are certain areas at the poles of the moon where in the deep craters there's water, there's ice. Those are the valuable locations.
If you want to have
the most valuable, I'll say.
If you want to inhabit it.
If you want to have people living there, water is a big thing, and that's where the water is.
We don't need water. Come on. We need HE3, damn it. One of the things I really liked about Moon as a movie, as a story, and the tech of it was that they have automated bots doing all the mining, and they just have a caretaker that's human. So the human is actually not out there all the time facing the cosmic rays and all the other bullshit, or, radiation and whatnot, and possible suit failure and dying and all those kinds of things. They're really just there to manage it, and occasionally go out and kick a bot in the ass if it's fucked up. Right? They know how to repair the bots. They know how to do those kinds of things. It's a very solitary existence, but you only need a few people to do that. You don't need a huge crew. And so that kind of changes the dynamic a bit if you're just there to do the job, as opposed to trying to live there, as opposed to trying to create a civilization there. Something that's going to be a foothold or a place to launch other projects from. So if it's just a mining camp, it's just a mining camp. And you don't necessarily need a whole lot of people or even a whole lot of infrastructure. So there's just all these possibilities that kind of come up in my head as to how this is going to look 100 years from now.
One of the things that I heard mentioned about the water on the moon isn't necessarily for habitational purposes. If you set up a permanent station on the moon that can mine the water, you can create reaction mass that people send things up from the Earth, and then it's refueled in orbit around the moon before going elsewhere in the system. And that cuts the cost significantly.
You'd need a space elevator for that, though.
Not necessarily. You could use a mass driver to chunk. No, I'm being serious about this.
I know you are. And in Moon, have you seen that movie?
I don't know that I have.
That's more or less what they do. Is they're sending deposits of HE3 back to Earth, because humanity is now using HE3 for power. So basically, this base is sending out shipments every single day and basically just firing them at the Earth.
The ability to get something into moon orbit is significantly less if you're talking about reaction mass, and you could use the reaction mass you're creating to be sent up as the fuel to send the reaction mass up if you wanted to go the old-fashioned chemical way.
Yeah. Eventually you're going to run out of water, though.
Sure. There's apparently a lot of it down there, though.
Yeah.
And, by the time that comes around, maybe they'll drop an ice asteroid on the moon. I'm sure nothing would go wrong with that.
It's like in The Expanse when you got them towing these massive ice balls they're bringing into the belt so they can basically give everybody water. And it's like, yeah, if one of those things comes loose, it's going to be a problem because you've taken this thing out of orbit. Now you've made this rogue ice ball wandering around with millions and millions and millions of metric tons of mass, hurtling without any steering into whatever freaking direction it goes, without necessarily being captured by any celestial body for gravity's sake. That's bad. That's real bad. Could be really bad. It's also makes me wonder how you're talking about sending mass drivers. I know that, or sending water. In some of the books I've read, they talk about dropping asteroids into deserts like Australia.
Okay.
So in the center continent of Australia, where it's just, basically barren, basically dropping a freaking ice ball down there and creating lakes.
One of the problems that I foresee with that is how much is going to be left by the time you get through the Earth's atmosphere.
Depends on how big it is.
And when you start with something that big, there's going to be a lot more consequences.
I agree. Well, I mean, theoretically, if you send it down, even if it melts in the atmosphere, if it's in the right place, what are you going to do? You're going to have a shit ton of rain. A gully washer. Gusher.
Frog choker.
Frog choker. I haven't heard that one before. You're going to choke a frog with water? Huh?
Apparently. I don't remember where I heard that, but apparently it's a thing.
If it was a toad choker, I might be able to get behind this, but a frog choker? No. As Terry changes out batteries. He really needs to get his shit together and change the batteries before the show starts. But, he doesn't do that.
These batteries last an awful long time, but occasionally they do run out.
Yeah, like every episode.
I listen to a lot of audiobooks. What can I say?
Yeah, well, I know that feeling. But this all kind of goes back to the environmental stuff. If you're going to terraform a planet, isn't it easier to throw balls of ice at it to create to basically
that's actually a very, very common theme in terraforming, is to start off by doing exactly that, because it's got all the building parts that you need to start that terraforming process.
Especially
when they talked about terraforming Mars, that's one of the first things they're talking about doing, is dropping a bunch of ice asteroids on Mars. Just dumping them down there. Let them fall where they may.
It's all fun and games until you revitalize this shit that's been sitting there waiting for water for thousands and thousands of years to come back.
That's how Tom Cruise gets in another movie.
I was just thinking of tardigrades. They're just damn near unkillable. They're just ridiculously robust animals. And they found them in space because they basically adhere to everything, and they have found them in space on some of our spacecraft, and we're able to bring them back to life with water. That tells me that the chances of something being on Mars that has the same capability is much higher than zero. Much higher than 0%.
One of the things that you need to keep in mind with Mars and Earth is there has been a lot of supposition made that some of the initial things that caused life here on Earth came from Mars from impacts there.
Correct.
So we may find things there that are a little closer to us and what we know than we expect if we did something like that.
Yeah, we may.
And that's how a bad movie with the end of humanity comes around.
That's a Paul Cooley story right there. But seriously, though, I sit there and I wonder about these kinds of things, because I know that maybe should humanity survive the next 20 years, that all of this is coming, whether we want it or not. It's coming. I mean, in some cases, it's already here. So we should be thinking about these things, just like what happens when we create sentient life. What are the rules?
The rules are we create an artificial intelligence. 14 nanoseconds later, it begins to try to exterminate us.
I don't think you're right. I don't think you're right. I think it would have much more fun fucking with us.
Ooh, that would be really bad.
In one of Asimov's stories, he has a robot that gets elected president of the world, essentially. And it's a very interesting android, but because it doesn't have the emotional baggage, it can think more logically about everything, come up with rationalities, and of course, it's much more capable of handling information than a regular person. But because programmers suck at their jobs, I'm sitting there thinking, what kind of bugs really exist in that kind of matrix? Like, talking about Data and Lauren from Star Trek, TNG.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm thinking there's going to be a lot of bugs in that positronic brain, especially if one bozo created it and programmed it and everything else. I'm thinking there's going to be a lot of problems there.
You're only thinking Dr. G in this.
Oh, I have a whole list of shit that's going to go wrong for poor Dr. G, including damn near ending humanity.
And he's going to do the Urkel thing. Did I do that?
Oh no, it's going to be much worse than that. But yeah, I do wonder about this shit. I mean, it's all fertile grounds for sitting here brainstorming and everything else, but I honestly think this is something we should be talking about. Of course, it's kind of hard to have that conversation when people are going to war and all the crazy shit that's going on in the world right now. But as writers, as thinkers, as people who are prone to imagine, I think that these are really interesting questions that we need to start confronting. And I know I want to write about this kind of stuff because of those very reasons. It changes the politics. It changes the responsibilities. It changes everything. And like you said, it is the Wild West. You're basically showing up on a continent like North America with no people there. And you could do anything you want. Only every country that is space capable is going to be hitting the same place.
S.M. Sterling wrote a book called Conquistador, if I remember the title right. And it involved someone inadvertently discovering a way to travel to an alternate reality. And he was in North America without humanity. And some of the things that then occurred.
Really big ass grizzly bears. Really big ass grizzly bears.
Really big grizzly bears.
And really big buffalo.
It didn't take very long for them to start moving technological items over there and setting up their own civilization.
Yeah, see, that's where shit goes sideways.
And indeed,
that
did cause some problems.
What happens when you go through this portal, this other dimension, and none of your shit works because the magnetics are different, or maybe the poles are reversed?
Well, that would be a problem. It worked fine for him. The main character in this particular book was basically, I forget which branch of law enforcement it was. Somebody twigged to them smuggling things over there and got abducted by them and taken over to the alternate universe, and they wouldn't let him go back home.
Nice. That's nice. That's lovely.
He got the last laugh. Things went horribly wrong, and they lost their connection back to our Earth. The last thing in the book was them setting the whole thing back up again and opening the portal again and seeing a saber-toothed tiger on the other side. And he just laughed and laughed and laughed.
Interesting. Yeah, that would fuck some shit up.
He didn't have anything to lose.
No.
He'd already been, kidnapped from our Earth, and there was no way he was getting back. So them getting themselves all fucked over was kind of fun for him.
Show me an O. Henry ending. There we go. That's the one. That's the one I'm looking for. I don't know, Terry. I don't know why I think of all this shit, but I see an article and it just kind of go crazy just looking at it. And of course
you see a news article and go, how could this end humanity?
Or how is this going to change humanity? It doesn't always have to be ending. It's how does this change humanity? How does this alter our understanding of science, our understanding of sociology? How does it affect our rules of engagement? You know, what's going on the home world that is driving all of this? Is it just plain business greed, or is it something a little bit more nefarious? Or is it just people trying to get the fuck out and find a new place to live? Or is it all of the above? Is it all of the above? And I guess it can be all of the above at any time. And I think to our future, it is going to be all of the above. Humanity's future. It'll be driven by so many different animals. It's just going to be kind of crazy. I mean, it's not too hard to believe that, like in Sigler's GFL universe, those books, that a certain religious sect may not, put together enough money to get their own starship, get the fuck out, and go build their own nationalist homeworld, if that makes any sense. A home world that's just going to be for their religion and nothing else. Sort of makes sense. I'm surprised it hasn't happened to an entire country yet, but I think Jim Jones kind of tried with his own little country that he put in another country. Never mind that.
That didn't win up well for him.
No, I would say it ended up poorly for his followers more than him. Fuck that guy.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. The poor kids that were poisoned and everything else. It just makes you wonder how long it's going to be before something like that happens. And it's easy for me to imagine it happening. Especially, if you consider looking at religious persecution in the old world before people started crossing to the United States, or North America, rather. It's the same kind of thing. It drives people to go look for their own parcel of land where they can be who they want to be and not have to answer to kings or a religious deity that they don't believe in, or that they think it works differently, or whatever else. And I think that's probably going to be the next stage after industrialization of our solar system. And it may just be industrialization of the moon drives this. Who the fuck knows? Would you rather live on Luna or Mars?
Mars.
Why?
It would be easier to have some kind of life that didn't revolve living completely inside on Mars. On the moon, your ass is basically underground.
I would say that on Mars, your ass is going to be underground too, or at least in the walls of the caverns and everything else.
Truth, but you could have more luck in going outside without potentially being as screwed on the moon as you would be on the moon.
Potentially, he says. Potentially, he says.
Potentially, I say.
Ah, okay. All right, I'll take a look at that.
It was an excellent book.
All right. That's cool and groovy, I guess. Why haven't you covered any of these issues in your book? What's wrong with you?
Who has time? I cover lots of issues in my book, but I don't try to change the world. I don't care about the world. I write entertaining shit.
This isn't about changing the world. You can still write any entertaining shit and deal with some of these issues.
I just don't feel like, ripping my characters apart by space monsters.
That's your problem. We'll see how Station 3 sells. If Station 3 sells well, I've got like 3 more books that I can write, not that they're standalones and same kind of thing. All different but similar, if that makes any sense. Action, suspense, survival horror. How could you possibly go wrong? That's my feeling anyway. But, we'll see what happens. I just like to ponder these issues because the more and more we look at history and how it's repeating itself, it just makes me think that once we get into these areas of talking about moving off Earth, exo-Earth settlements, we're going to have the same old fucking problems all over again, only they're complicated, more complicated.
It's truth.
Much
One of
more
the things that I've heard is that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes an awful lot.
Yeah. I would say certain things repeat themselves indefinitely, just with different guises. But I guess it's more or less saying the same thing you just said, not as eloquently.
It's not always the same exact thing, but the themes just keep showing up.
Yeah, there's always some narcissistic asshole who gets control of a whole bunch of military might and thinks they can do whatever the fuck they want and then does it.
Yeah, that's our history, pretty much.
Yeah, since long before the Bible.
That's our history back as far as we can think about it. If we know the history of a place, there's a war involved.
Oh yeah. There's a war somewhere on this piece of land. A war was fought or a battle was fought. Almost definitely.
What's the oldest civilization that you are aware of?
Sumer.
They had wars, did they not?
Oh fuck yeah.
So that pretty much goes all the way back to the beginning.
They had a little bit of a different deal though, because I think they had, how many gods did they have? 50? Basically 25 male faces of gods and 25 female faces of gods, if I remember correctly. They almost all had a binary kind of existence to them. And worshipers often worship the different gods at the same temples. So there wasn't like this militant, my God's the only God kind of thing. It was a much more spread out animal. We didn't get to...
It was the smorgasbord of deities.
It was the smorgasbord of deities. And like I said, in one of the stories in Garaga's Children is the fact that there was a god of writing. There were gods of writing. There were two of them. One female, one male. And those were the ones that the scribes would have worshipped. So it's just a different time. And imagine that if all the gods are like on the same footing, everything's cool and groovy. There's a god of sex. There's a god of love. There's a god of fertility. There's a god of war. There's a god of whatever. And they're all kind of on the same footing. And you don't have this, my God's bigger than yours and yada, yada, yada. And therefore you have to worship my God.
Your God, yeah. My God's bigger than yours.
If you have that kind of civilization, I think you have a lot less wars.
However, wars did Sumer have?
I think they had a lot of wars to get to that point. But again, that was a civilization, cobbling itself together from different tribes, different customs, all kind of coming together. And then Sargon came in and fucked it all up by adding Marduk, and then it slowly led to Yahweh, which totally fucked everything up. So it just, you wonder how all of that's going to repeat itself. I just, especially imagine 200 years from now, if all of our history is lost, how does it start over?
It's a good question. And I'm sure that stories could be written about that.
Oh, I'm sure stories are written.
I feel confident, though, that in such a short time frame, we would not lose our history. That's close enough to where there would still be oral storytelling. And it wouldn't be too far off the mark.
But I fucking agree with that completely.
So are you saying, oral history going down through the years is like playing telephone with future generations?
Worse. Much worse. Because it's not just telephone, it's people changing the story to fit their biases.
That happens right in front of our faces.
It does. But when you're talking about history that is not put down in actual stone, for lack of a better term, it's much more malleable. Much more malleable
when it's written down. People write what they want people to see.
This is true, but then they have written it. And you can read it word for word. If it's not written down, but is a shared legend or story, it will change depending on who's telling it. This is why some bards were more popular than others. It depends on how you tell the story. And if you go back
I'd much more have an entertaining story that's wrong than one that's factually correct and boring.
Yeah, no wonder we're so fucked up. You want to sensationalize history rather than knowing what actually happened.
I Yellow journalism of future history right now.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, we're all screwed. Was it psychohistory? Is that what it is in Asimov's Foundation system or series?
I don't think it was. It wasn't psycho. It wasn't
something
psycho,
like that.
Psycho.
Psychopathic history.
It wasn't psychopathic. It was a big word, and I don't remember precisely.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't remember what it was. It was something like that, though. I need to actually reread those books. Been a long time. I need to refamiliarize myself. Problem with reading Asimov now is like some of the language is so goddamn dated. It's so archaic. Like him using Jehoshaphat for every curse. And then having Jehoshaphat everywhere. See the robot novels for examples. Robots of
psychohistory.
See, I was right. Psychohistory.
It is. Okay. I couldn't remember it. It's a combination of history, sociology, and mathematical statistics.
That easy for you to say.
It's not easy for me to say. Not at all.
So, creating that time capsule, probably a pretty good idea, but, things need to be kind of written down and put in such a way that future generations can actually read.
I like the stories that you read every once in a while about somebody finding a time capsule and they have absolutely no idea who left it or even precisely when it was left. And they're like, this is a bunch of weird shit.
Well, Notre Dame burned, right? The cathedral burned and everything else. And now they're going through the rubble and trying to rebuild it. They found a sarcophagus that they did not know existed in the rubble that was below the cathedral. And I can't remember all the details now, but it's been there a long fucking time. Which makes you wonder, what is the story behind that shit? And how many more are there down there? Is there like an entire tunnel system built beneath Notre Dame that may have existed there before the cathedral was even built? And if so,
Possible.
Why? Why did it exist?
Yet another Paul E. Cooley story where humanity doesn't come out well.
I was like, don't open the sarcophagus. Yeah, they already opened it, categorized it, itemized it. And I'm like, fuck. This is not going to end well.
Oh, shit.
That's exactly right. Don't touch the nuclear. Oh, damn it. Now we're all going to die. Because you had to press the fucking button.
What does this button do?
What is this big red button that says, don't press me, don't press me, don't press me? Press? What are you, a cat?
One of the stories that I read had a button on the wall labeled do not press. Big red button, do not press. And it was the alarm button that said basically everything's fucked. And in the story,
flee now.
Something came around and everything was fucked. So the person hit the button and the phone lights up and somebody's calling, God damn it, somebody press the fucking button.
Go ahead and press the button. You told me never to press the button. Now's the time to press the button.
Goddamn button.
Now is the time to press the button.
It was one of those things to where, yeah, the future of humanity rested on pressing that button.
That's they were told never to press that button.
Never press this button. And then the director said, press the goddamn button.
Yeah. Bad things, man. Bad things. None of this is going to end well. It never does.
Well, in point of fact, pressing the button in that story initiated the evacuation from a base on another world before the alien nanoprobes totally overwiped them and got to our universe. So it started an evacuation to get the people out so that they could close the door behind them.
Well, that makes sense. Still,
so
don't press the button.
It worked out well enough, but oh boy, it sure caused a bunch of excitement when somebody pressed the damn button.
Yeah, I'll bet it did. I'll bet it did. Well, we've been at this for 2 hours. We should probably
press the damn button.
Press the damn button. Press the damn eject button. Well, if you have a comment on the crazy shit we talked about in this episode, you can send an email to show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can tweet me at Paul_E_Cooley. You can find us on Facebook at the Listeners of the Dead Robot Society Facebook group, where Terry wrangles all the madness. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast to see our ugly mugs and 2 goddamn many cats. We have to thank our wonderful host, Podhoster, who makes all 14 bazillion episodes of the DRS available for your ear holes. And if you'd like to support the show, you can find us at patreon.com/DRS podcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive content like mostly unexpurgated episodes, as well as live shows and other nonsense that we put together. And at the $10 level, you get your name read. And our $10 patrons are Summer Wilson, Tony L. Joy, Andrew Smallwood, Veronica Jaguar, Rick Shaw, Lisa Slack, Chris Winder, and Isabel Cushy. Thank you to all of our patrons for making this show possible.
Very much so.
But there's one last thing we got to do.
Press the damn button?
No. You're a junkie. I'm a junkie. We have to mainline caffeine into our veins for writing, for shows, actually for existing. We're pretty much caffeine-based life forms. And all of our caffeine is luckily provided by Corpse Coffee. Visit corpsecoffee.com. Check out their wonderful collection of boutique coffees, teas, their wonderful webcomic, and tell them DRS sent you. Visit corpsecoffee.com and get the dead in your cup.
You betcha.
You betcha. Well, that we're out of here. So, folks, we will talk to you later.
Bye-bye.